Welcome to my channel. Support our channel by subscribing. Your subscription helps us grow and create more intriguing content like this. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a sunny morning in the bustling city of Charleston. A light breeze brushed through the open windows of a suburban home, where Lily Thompson, a beautiful 32-year-old marketing executive, and her husband Ben, a quiet 34-year-old architect, sat having breakfast. Lily was the type of woman who turned heads wherever she went. Tall, with jet-black hair and a smile that could light up any room, she had always been the center of attention, especially at work. Ben, on the other hand, was a man of few words. He was meticulous, dependable, and grounded. He had always been content with a simple life, one he thought would last forever. Lily had met Ben in college, and they quickly fell in love. They married after graduation, and with a few years of hard work, they built a life together, one of comfort and stability. To everyone around them, they were the couple everyone envied. They had a beautiful home, a steady income, and a picture-perfect marriage. But as they sat across from each other that morning, sipping coffee, a heavy silence lingered. Lily stared at her phone, texting under the table. Ben, absorbed in the morning newspaper, didn't notice. But the slight furrow in his brow said everything. Something had changed. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt the distance growing between them. Unbeknownst to Ben, Lily had been leading a double life for nearly a year. She had fallen into an affair with a colleague from her marketing firm, Ryan Mitchell, a man with a magnetic personality and a rebellious spirit that Lily found irresistible. Ryan wasn't like Ben. He was unpredictable, exciting, and full of charm. Where Ben was methodical and reliable, Ryan was impulsive and spontaneous, offering Lily a world that Ben could never give her. Their affair started as a brief fling at a company conference, but it quickly grew into something more. Ryan would meet her in secret, slipping into hidden hotels or taking weekend trips to distant cities. Every time she returned home to Ben, she was filled with guilt, but she couldn't stop herself from going back for more. One Friday evening, as Ben was working late on a new design project, Lily snuck out for another meeting with Ryan. This time, however, it was different. As she climbed into her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The nagging voice in her head told her that she was living on borrowed time. But she silenced it, telling herself she deserved to live in the moment. Ryan greeted her with a kiss, and they spent the evening together, oblivious to the storm brewing on the other side of town. Days turned into weeks, and Ben's suspicions started to grow. At first, they were subtle. A missed dinner here, an unexplained delay there. Lily had always been a little absent-minded about time, but recently it seemed like she was purposely avoiding him. Her late nights at work became more frequent, and she started leaving her phone unattended, something she had never done before. One night, while Lily was getting ready for another work event, Ben decided to do something he had never done before. He checked her phone. What he found made his heart drop. Lily's text messages were full of romantic words, intimate photos, and plans that were clearly not for a work event. The messages were from Ryan, and they left no room for doubt. The betrayal stung deeply, but Ben wasn't a man of hasty decisions. He knew he needed more than just messages to confront her. He needed to understand what was happening. The next day, Ben decided to confront Lily. It was a Saturday morning, and they were having breakfast together. The weight of the situation hung heavily between them, but neither of them spoke a word about it. Finally, Ben broke the silence. "Lily, we need to talk," Ben said, his voice calm but filled with an undeniable tension. Lily looked up, a smile playing on her lips. "What's wrong, babe?" "I know about you and Ryan," Ben said, his voice steady but filled with hurt. Lily froze. Her face drained of color, and for a moment, she looked like she had seen a ghost. She dropped her fork, unable to speak. "I found your messages," Ben continued, pulling out his phone and showing her the texts. "I know everything, Lily." Lily's eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't say anything. She could barely look at him. The man she had loved, the man who trusted her, was sitting across from her with broken eyes, staring at the very evidence of her betrayal. "I'm sorry, Ben," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened." Ben looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Did you ever think about me, Lily? About the life we built? About everything we've shared?" His voice wavered slightly, the hurt bleeding through. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she repeated. "But I felt trapped. Ryan, he makes me feel alive in ways you don't anymore." Ben didn't speak for a long time. His emotions were raw, but there was no rage in him, only sadness. Finally, he stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done," he said, his voice firm. "We're finished." After the confrontation, Ben was no longer the man who had once been blinded by love. He had glimpsed the betrayal in its cruelest form, and now there was a coldness in his heart, a new determination. His pain, though deep, had transformed into something else entirely. The man who had once silently trusted his wife was gone. In his place stood someone far more resolute. Ben was methodical, patient, and calculated. He had always been a man who planned his actions. When it came to revenge, he knew that swift and impulsive decisions rarely brought satisfaction. It was the long game that mattered. He wasted no time. Ben began to meet with a divorce attorney, carefully gathering evidence and planning his next steps. He requested all financial records and made sure to thoroughly review their assets. He knew Lily's career, her connections, and her lavish spending habits. He understood that without his income, she would have nothing. What would she be left with, he wondered, when everything was stripped away? In the quiet of his office, Ben sat behind his desk, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the wood. He wasn't angry, he wasn't even sad anymore. He was simply calculating how best to dismantle the life they had built together. Lily's betrayal, in his mind, was the end of everything between them. The years they spent together meant nothing now, not when everything he had trusted had been shattered. The more Ben thought about it, the more he realized that his revenge wasn't about inflicting pain. It was about making her understand the depth of her mistake. He would take away what mattered to her most, her security, her freedom, and her image. He would make her feel the weight of her actions, but without a single outburst, without any violence, just cold, impassive reality. Ben had learned early on that people underestimated quiet strength. In the weeks following his discovery, he began pulling the strings, gathering evidence, securing documents, and meeting with professionals. It was a slow build, but it was methodical, and it would be perfect. The days that followed their argument were strange for both of them. To the outside world, everything appeared normal. Ben was still going to work, still meeting with colleagues and clients, his demeanor unchanged. Lily, too, kept up appearances, pretending that their marriage was still intact. They spoke little to each other at home, and when they did, it was strained, forced. But there was a palpable tension between them, like an invisible line of communication that they both knew existed, but chose not to acknowledge. Lily, in particular, grew more and more anxious. She could feel Ben pulling away emotionally, even if he never said a word. He wasn't the man she once knew, the trusting, loving partner. There was a distance in his eyes, a calm that made her heart race with a mix of fear and guilt. She thought she could keep up the charade for a little longer, but deep down, she knew that the walls were closing in. Ben was playing his own game now, and she wasn't sure if she could keep up. One evening, Lily tried to bridge the gap. She had spent hours picking out the perfect dress, attempting to recreate the warmth of the evenings they used to share. She prepared a candlelit dinner in hopes of rekindling some kind of connection. When Ben walked in, she greeted him with a smile, her heart in her throat. She needed him to understand that she regretted what had happened. Ben, we need to talk, she began softly as they sat down at the table. She tried to mask the desperation in her voice. I've been thinking about everything, and I want to fix this. Can we try to make it work? Please. I love you. Ben didn't answer immediately. He picked up his glass of wine, staring into it as if lost in thought. Lily could feel her palms sweating. She had never been this vulnerable with him before, not like this. I don't know if we can, Ben said quietly, his voice steady but distant. You broke my trust, Lily. I don't know if that can ever be fixed. The words stung, but Lily pushed forward. I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. Please don't let one mistake destroy everything we've built. Ben put his glass down gently, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in days. There was no anger, no yelling. His eyes were calm, almost detached. You don't understand, Lily. This isn't just about a mistake. This is about everything. The lies, the deceit. You've ruined it all. He paused, his voice lowering. And now, you have to live with that. Lily felt the room grow colder, the silence thickening between them. She knew Ben had already made up his mind.
Ben had already made up his mind. There was no more room for negotiation, no more second chances. He wasn't angry anymore. He was done. The divorce proceedings were swift. Ben had already prepared everything. His lawyer, a shrewd and efficient woman named Caroline, made it clear from the start that there would be no room for negotiation. The assets they had built together were now divided with the cold efficiency of a well-executed plan. The house, the cars, the savings, they were all transferred into Ben's name. Lily was left with a fraction of their joint wealth, a small amount of money, and the house they had once shared, but only temporarily. Ben had made sure that within months it would be sold. Lily was left stunned. She had no idea the extent of Ben's planning. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a complete dismantling of her life. Her career, which she had always been so proud of, began to fall apart. The affair had become public knowledge, and Lily found herself ostracized by friends and colleagues. She lost her job due to the scandal. The company, unwilling to deal with the bad press, quickly terminated her contract, leaving her with little to show for her years of hard work. Ben's revenge had been methodical, but it wasn't cruel. He had given her exactly what she had given him, a life of nothing. No love, no security, no future. One night, Lily sat alone in the empty house, staring at the walls. Everything she had worked for, everything she had once taken for granted, was gone. The world outside seemed distant, unrecognizable. She had tried to fight for Ben, tried to prove that she could change, but it was too late. There was nothing left but regret and the harsh reality of her choices. She replayed their last conversation over and over in her mind, wondering where everything went wrong. How could she have thrown it all away? How could she have betrayed the man who had loved her unconditionally? Her mind was clouded with guilt, but it wasn't enough to undo the damage she had caused. Ben was gone, and she couldn't undo the destruction of their marriage. In those quiet moments of reflection, Lily realized something that cut deeper than any loss. She had lost herself in her pursuit of something she thought she wanted. In seeking excitement with Ryan, she had destroyed everything she had built with Ben. The trust, the love, the companionship. Months passed. Ben continued to move on with his life. His business flourished, and he found peace in the quiet moments he had longed for. He traveled to places he had always dreamed of visiting, rebuilt relationships with old friends, and began dating again, though he kept things simple. He wasn't looking for another marriage. What mattered now was his own healing. As for Lily, she spent her days in silence. She moved to a small apartment in a less desirable part of town, trying to rebuild a life she had lost. But the truth was, it would never be the same. She had learned the hard way that actions have consequences, and some mistakes are impossible to undo. One rainy afternoon, Lily found herself standing in front of Ben's office, staring at the building that had once been a symbol of their shared future. She had come to a realization. There was no point in holding on to the past. She needed to let go, just as Ben had done. He had taken back his life, his dignity, and had moved forward. She sent him a simple message. "I wish I could turn back time, Ben. I'm sorry for everything." Ben read the message but didn't reply. He had already said everything that needed to be said. The chapter was over. Narrator. Lily's story is a reminder of the destructive power of betrayal and the painful cost of living in secrets. Ben's revenge was not violent or dramatic. It was the slow burn of a man who had lost everything, but who took control of his life and his future. In the end, Lily's regret was all she had left. Ben, on the other hand, found peace in the quiet aftermath of his actions. Narrator, what do you think of Ben's quiet yet calculated revenge? Was it too much, or was it exactly what Lily deserved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that dive into the complexities of life, love, and betrayal. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful revenge is living well.